What's up, guys? Hey, I'm Dustin Ibarra.
And I'm Greg Baldwin.
And we're podcasting.
Yeah!
Yeah, man. Welcome to Good Things Are Happening.
Man, it's good to be here.
Good things are happening, dude.
It's awesome, dude.
It's
awesome,
exciting.
Man.
This is awesome because, like, we're doing this podcast and, like, good things are happening. And then it's like, I feel like we manifested this kind of. What's up, guys? Welcome to Good Things Are Happening. I'm Dustin Ibarra.
And I am Greg Baldwin.
Greg Baldwin. What's up, buddy? How you feeling?
I love the glasses, dude.
You know, I've been putting them on in the beginning of the first one because I think it's like catchy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And people be like, what's this? Who's this guy? Let's watch this podcast. It's like, I'm not that crazy. Dude.
How's it going? What's going on?
Things are good, man.
Yeah.
Life's good, dude. What can I say?
What's going on good in your life today?
What is going on good in my life right now? I had a drain issue. My sink was stopped up.
Mm-hmm.
And I called a plumber,
Mm-hmm.
and the first guy was like, "It's gonna be $2,500." And I'm like, "Whoa, this is insane!
Wow.
I'm gonna have to
What'd you put
not
in that,
use the
dude?
sink." That's what they always ask too. You notice when you call a plumber, they're always like super like they talk to you like you're an idiot and stuff. Like they look at the drain and then they look at you and it's like, "Whoa. You know, you can't put bones down here." I'm like, "Oh, really? I can't put bones? I've been throwing shoes down there. And I put some 2x4 the other day." It's like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to put bones. And then they just judge you and stuff.
I
And
put a dead body in there.
yeah, there's a dead body. There's bones. It's like the French catacombs down there, dude. There's a lot of bones.
Yeah.
But anyway, the first plumber was like, "It's going to be $2,500. And I'm like, "Oh, my God." But then got another plumber and he's doing it like right now as we speak for like $200, man.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude.
Does the landlord pay for it? Or you
Landlord does pay for
Oh,
it.
okay, that's
yeah.
good.
Plumbers are so interesting, right? Because they're so kind of like very cocky with their
Mhm.
job. They like, because they know something you don't. It's kind of like a mechanic, you know? They know. And you don't know if he's like the first thing he asked me, he was like, "Did you use Drano?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I used Drano." And he was like, and apparently like,
It's not
Drano's a
good.
big no-no.
Really?
Yeah, the plumber like freaked out. He's like, "You can't use Drano. You know how bad it is for the pipes?" And I'm like, "Well, dude, why do they sell it then? You know, like because it's called Drano.
Yeah.
It's like, and I didn't use Drano.
That's
I
what
used
I would have thought.
yeah, I used the off-brand. It was like just some like $2 thing that you toss down there.
You got to have a lot of respect for plumbers. The kitchen's fine, but when they got to
Yeah.
do the bathroom,
Oh, if it was a toilet, I couldn't be there. I would
that's
be
tough.
like, "You got to meet. I'm gonna leave the key under the door."
when I was in college, we had a backed up toilet. And all we
Yeah.
did, we were college students, so we just shut the door for like a month.
You just left it?
Yeah, we had 2 bathrooms. Nobody used that bathroom. And then you opened up the door and it was the most, it was just terrible. So we had to call a plumber. And that poor plumber, man. Oh, God. Oh, man. I felt bad for her.
Did you guys have to like meet him at the door and stuff?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even been there.
We
I'd be
like evacuated the house for like 3 days to let the
oh
air,
my
the smell air
God,
out. Oh,
that's
it's terrible.
college waste too. That's disgusting. That's Taco Bell and Carl's Jr. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, so life is good right now. I got
That's
a
good.
clean drain. It wasn't that much. What's up with you?
So God, what is going on with me? I just did, I speak in jails about
Yes.
recovery and, I've done
Very
it, like,
cool.
Yeah. And, I've done it over like 300 times and,
Mhm.
I became the director of it and I've got like a lot of people I know cleared and, to go speak in there, but I brought somebody in, for their very first jail panel, Jay Moore.
Ah, nice.
So
I bet you Jay did good.
he
in the
did,
jail.
killed it,
Yeah,
man.
he killed.
He's
Yeah.
a professional,
Yeah.
So he brought me to a prison panel a couple months ago. We went to Santa Barbara and we did it in a prison, and which was just phenomenal. It was actually my first time in a prison, not a jail, prison
In Santa Barbara?
in Santa Barbara.
Oh,
Yeah,
I bet you that's a nice prison.
yeah.
Santa
It
Barbara's
was like,
nice.
it was nice,
Yeah.
What I noticed in the difference between the jails and the prisons is the prisons they've already been sentenced. So they've come to terms with their sentence and they're a lot more freer and relaxed.
Yeah.
And when we go into the jails, there's a lot more tension and anxiety because they have court cases. They're, they don't know how long they're going to be in there and so forth. But I brought Jay in for the first time, and it's just phenomenal. We walk in, I have a non-escort pass, so I can walk around the jails with no escort, which is just baffling to me.
You can just like walk around and go places and no one. Oh, that seems
so you have to have a reason
dangerous.
to be in there because you got to check in and stuff. But I have a green pass, and which is a non-escort, and I've been in there over 300 times, and every time I walk in there, it's still just baffling, And actually, when I became the director of jails for the program. The sheriffs took me out to lunch, and I'm sitting in the back of a sheriff's car. And we're on our way to lunch. The welcome me in, and I said, 3 years ago I was smoking meth, and in the back of a cop car, I got getting arrested, and they just looked at me like, "Oh my God!" Like It wasn't funny to them. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, that's a cool turnaround, man. You were in the back of the car for like drugs, and now it's like you're going in and helping people and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, and what the real magic of it was is I've done it so many times. It's incredible for me, but watching somebody else's lights turn on the first time.
That's awesome.
And getting to bring him in for the first time and watching him have experience. And, there's like, I don't know, 20 women, 25 women. And we shared our story, and Jay just killed it.
That's great.
Just killed it.
Have you ever had someone like come up to you that got out of prison or anything? Or you've met them like on the outside?
Yeah. So what happened, I was in, I went and did this jail pan on this kid. I had met a few months in a row, and he said, "I'm getting out on Friday. What should I do?" And I said, "Well, come meet me at this recovery meeting." So on a Friday, and he didn't show up. I didn't think anything of it. And about 4 months later, I was at this recovery meeting, and I see this kid staring at me, right? And I didn't recognize him. And he comes running over to me. I'm like, "Hey, man." And he's like, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "From jail." And I'm like, "Oh my God, dude. Yeah. What's up, man?" And he goes, "I got out." He goes, "I started drinking again." He goes, "I hit another bottom, and so I came to this meeting looking for you, but you weren't here." He goes, "I raised my hand as a newcomer, and all these people surrounded me. They got me into a sober life." And he goes, "I'm sober 3 months."
Dude, that is awesome. That's like a great story, man.
And a year later, he was a speaker at a recovery meeting. I was sitting in the back. He shared his story, how he said someone brought in a recovery meeting to the jail and introduced him to recovery. And he said, "That person saved my life." And he looked at me and he smiled.
Oh my God.
And he's now 13 years sober. And we still connect sometimes. And
that's great.
It's just incredible.
That's inspirational, man.
Yeah.
And man, now I'm like, man, I should have had something better than my plumbing. Like my drains are clean. You're like, I saved someone's life.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're doing great, dude. I'm proud of you, man.
I'm happy, bro.
Speaking of inspiration, we have an amazing, wonderful, inspiring guest today.
Yes, I'm very pumped about this.
Yeah, a couple of her credits. She was the booker on The Late Show with David Letterman, introducing talent such as Louis C.K., Jim Gaffigan, Mitch Hedberg, Eddie Izzard, which is phenomenal. She helped launch the Late Show with Craig Kilborn. She was in Comedy Central's Comedy Development Department, where she developed a lot of TV shows. And she was the comedy development at Blue Ribbon Content, Warner Brothers Digital Division. And an interesting fact, her mom and dad started the very first comedy club in America, the Improv in New York in 1963, and they just celebrated 60 years. So please welcome our guest today, Zoe Friedman.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I love being a fly on the wall for your discussion. Clean pipes or clean drains, not saying as important as sobriety in prison, but you don't have that.
It's up there.
You can't drink. It's all small and big good things happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about acknowledging all of it.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for
I'm like so
having me.
excited about this because you've got so much like history with like the Improv. That's like one of the Improv in Dallas was the first club that I ever got like a weekend at.
Ooh.
And it was always this big thing of like. You just see it. You see that Improv, the sign on the brick wall, and you're like, I've made it. This is crazy.
I produced my SNL show at the Hollywood Improv.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later because we partnered together on some shows. But there's an interesting fact that I thought was fascinating. So researching you, I knew about your dad, Bud Friedman, and he started the Hollywood Improv. But I learned about your mom,
Yeah.
Silver Saunders Friedman.
Silver Saunders Friedman.
And
That's right.
your mom and dad started the Improv in 1963. And one of the interesting stories is they ran out of money, so they couldn't afford more renovations. So they tore down the walls, and there was a brick wall behind it. So they used the brick wall as the backdrop, and now that's the signature backdrop for all the improv comedy clubs because they were cash poor.
Bro, not just comedy clubs. Like I'll see that in cartoons whenever they're like a comedy club. It's always a brick wall.
It is a brick wall, and it was happenstance. I mean, it truly was. I think that is absolutely the right story how I heard it. And again, I inherited from my parents or even my dad's book or researching is that it was there. The brick wall was already there and they had no money to fix it.
Ah, gotcha.
And my dad's a Jew and didn't know how to fix stuff. So, it stayed. And it is so funny that it has become such a iconic piece of stand-up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, my mom and my dad started together, but we are in the world of history. Yeah. So, and it didn't start as a comedy club either. I mean, it was a club where people would come after the theater. My mom was on Broadway. She was a singer on Broadway. She was in like Damn Yankees and How to Succeed in Business and Fiorella, like Golden Age, Pulitzer Prize winning shows. And my dad loved the theater. And he was what they call, and I have to give myself a moment because I say the wrong thing, backdoor Johnny, not backstage Johnny. I think that's the problem I made. Backstage Johnny, the people that hang out, like the groupies who love theater. Yeah. And my dad would like wait for my mom to get off, and they would go out like to places, and they kind of ideated the idea of this kind of place for people to perform after the theater. And then it evolved. It improvised itself into a comedy club, which I think had everything to do with the time, 1963. Things were changing, right? So, Civil Rights Act, Kennedy was assassinated. And it was a time that comedians' roles changed, like political, the David Frys, it has, and my parents were forward-facing people that allowed for political, wild, forward-thinking stuff, So I think it kind of evolved. They kind of created a soapbox in front of a brick wall, really, almost, and it evolved into what it did with love and kindness by my parents, so
that's so cool because they were just like bringing these artists together because like I like whenever artists hang out, it's like they want to hang out with other artists and stuff, and it just kind of like became a comedy club. That's like so cool.
I had read, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a very famous comedian that said, "Hey, can I run a few minutes here?"
Dave Astor?
Yeah, that's it. Dave Astor. And so he went and ran a few minutes of comedy, and that started.
It changed everything. It changed, right? They were improvising. There was a lot of improvisation going on. Like people from the theater, Marty Harvey Freeberg and Richard Pryor, who did stand up, but came and did improv. Yeah. Like almost like immersive theater, like they would do it all, on the stage and kind of through the audience. And then Dave Astor came and he did stand up on the stage, and he brought people in. And what I heard, another little tidbit about that is Dave maybe smoked a lot of pot, whatever, was kind of a provider, and where pot goes, comics go, and Pryor.
This is very true.
And Pryor came along with, and then it sort of evolved, and they had music as part of the shows, which stayed until I think the 80s, 90s. Music opened up shows at the Hollywood Improv here too when we started. I was 8 when my parents started the club out here. So
there's still a lot of musical comedians.
There's still a lot of musical comedians, right? And there's a piano on the stage, which is not usual for a comedy club, but music was very important to both my parents, and part of the club's history. I just had on the SNL show Dana Carvey, and he went to the piano and he started doing chopping broccoli and songs from SNL.
That's so cool
and stuff. And then Melissa Villasenor, she's
so musical.
She does musical comedy, and then Avery Pearson runs a music show.
Yeah, the 88 show.
The 88 show. He runs a music show. So it's still a part of
It's
the.
still, oh, for sure. I love that, I have a show format I'm trying to sell that has music and comedy to it.
I love music and comedy. Remember, because there was a long time where people were like, I don't know if they still do this, but they were shitting on like guitar comics and like musical acts. I love seeing that because it's different. You know what I'm saying? And it's still like stand up, but it's like a different thing. I like it. I like when people take risk like that.
I do too.
Craig Robinson's whole set is on the.
Oh, bro, I'm trying to learn the piano just so I can use that one at the Improv, but I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm just gonna sit there.
Chopsticks. That's it. I think when I was 8, I was allowed to go in there during the day. There was a Pac-Man machine in the bar, so my sister and I would play Pac-Man, and we'd probably go in and play on the microphone and piano. Oh man,
there was a Pac-Man machine.
There was in the bar.
You guys got to bring that back. I love some Pac-Man.
I think Eddie has it. No,
that's almost as good as Galaga. Dude. Galaga's.
Oh my god, yeah. Me and Greg played. Greg whooped my ass. We're in San Diego at ACC, and like there was a free Galaga machine in the lobby, and we're playing it. And Greg, I thought it would just be a quick game, but Greg got to like level 20 or something.
You know why? Because I played it as a kid, and then Jay and I went to Denver, Colorado to Comedy Works in Denver, and I stayed me and Daryl Hammond, and in the comedy condo. They had a video game and Galaga was on it. So and I spent like hours just playing. Yeah. It was so fun.
I remember that because my girlfriend was there and I remember just feeling so weak. Like I was afraid she would leave me for Greg. Yeah, because I got to like stage 2 and Greg was so far and I could see her look. I was like,
she was like,
exactly. This guy.
Who is this guy?
Ooh, maybe I'm with the wrong comic. Yeah.
You really understand the psyche of women who
They look at that. They want to provide it. You see
You see the ridiculous things that go on in men's brains.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up and around comedy? And it must have been an incredible childhood.
I think it was great. I mean, you don't anywhere you grow up or with whatever you grow up, you don't know it's different. You don't understand that people. Even through college, like going to college, like I knew my friends from high school's parents didn't have a comedy club, but it wasn't like it was a big deal, and we went after we'd go dancing. We'd go to the club at like 2 a.m. That was when I was a teenager, but I loved growing up around comedy and I'm in comedy. So it clearly got my heart and my soul and not performing, right? I'm not a performer, but love being around it. My parents were appropriate. Like they didn't bring us all the time to the club and they didn't bring comics all the time home. I think the only comics I remember when I was younger who were in our home was Jay Leno.
Wow.
Because he would drive down from Boston, as he's told many times, to deliver or drive Rolls Royces, which is kind of, my dad thought he was some fancy rich boy and liked him a lot. Yeah. Although he was funny, but he came in Rolls, anyway. So
and they weren't his. He was just like, that's funny.
And he left Jay tells the story. He left $34,000 in cash in a paper bag that he got for a Rolls at that time on the stage on the piano at the Improv, and it was still there. Because he was going to be fired. He turned back around. He was heading back up to Master. Anyway, so Jay was the only comic because my dad managed him, and he was like familial, that would be in our home. Like he would sleep on the couch a couple times, not all the time. And other than that, we'd go into the club. But like, I loved it. I mean, there were comics who probably were above my, pay grade at the time as a kid, but there were a few like an Andy Kaufman who hits for every level, right? Like adults and kids. But for me, he's so imaginative and all the voices. And then he ended up hosting Children's Cabaret, which was a once a month show on a Sunday during the day where the stage became a home for young performers, like on Broadway, like Danielle Brisbois, who you don't know, but she ended up in Archie Place, and like I forget other performers, and I think they built it for my sister and I, because at that moment, and when I was younger, I did want to perform, and I got to go on stage and do my cartwheels, and my sister played the violin. I don't know what we did. So cool. And loved. I mean, and Andy Kaufman was our host, and
that is
the
insane.
Audience got to choose whether we wanted Mr. Mean, who evolved into Tony Clifton, Foreign Man, which evolved into Latka, or Elvis, right, which was his Elvis impression, and he would change it up, and then he would take us bunny hopping around Times Square. I mean,
that is insane.
That's the best childhood ever.
That is amazing.
Like, pretty fun,
and I bet you look back now as an adult, and you look back at those experiences and realize how unique and special they were.
Yeah, totally.
And have a different appreciation for them than when you were growing up.
Yeah, right. Because you don't know it's any different until you go and go, oh my God, that was so unusual. And what
Yeah.
access to, to a performer like Andy, who
Yeah.
stayed very
Yeah.
close with my family. And I went to see him in Carnegie Hall and out here where we went milk and cookies and this old
Wow.
spaghetti. He always did something. He was so creative.
Wow.
That's how old were you when you finally realized like, oh, this is different. This is
I don't
cool.
know. I think it was a slow process.
Yeah.
Plus I'm like, not like, oh, I try to be humble, but I don't think about, oh, my circumstance is good or bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it has been a slow process. I think in college you realize, oh, right, I didn't grow up like everybody else. And I think as you get older and I don't know, I guess also, I guess you're more reflective as you're older too. You look back and you go, yeah, that was really unusual. And, probably not what people would consider appropriate parenting all the time. I mean, again, they were just winging it, and I'll tell you when we'd come visit my dad out here after my parents split up and I moved back to New York with my mom, and we'd come and then we'd go to like Cantor's with all the comics at like 2 a.m. with my dad.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, what I didn't know all 12-year-olds weren't
hanging out at 2 a.m. at Cantor's.
Right? Because you're just doing it was my sister and I, we'd go. And then when my dad remarried Alex, my stepmom, who I adore and love, she was like, you will not bring your daughters to, she was more, and my parents did okay. I mean, we're not, my sister and I aren't perfect, but they, we know what's right from wrong. We're okay. We're, even though we've ate at 2 a.m. with a bunch of derelict comics.
You're not in a jail panel with Greg speaking
right.
to you guys.
I'm not going to say I'm still young, but there's time.
Yeah, you didn't start using meth.
No.
Like I did, but
that's cool. That is awesome.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, it's a childhood that keeps giving, the fact that I work in comedy still, even though outside the door, the walls of the Improv, it's really like my heart and soul. And it was my parents too. Like I saw them love what they did, and I wanted in. I wanted definitely to be in on comedy. I knew that. I didn't know exactly what, but I definitely.
What gave you your start? Where did you first start working in the field?
Well, besides the Improv in New York, where I got to work every job, like answering the phones, decorating for New Year's Eve, coat check.
God, it is fun working at a comedy club too.
And again, I got so many skills. I got so many life skills, work skills at a young age. But my first job was at the David Letterman show.
Wow.
And I was an intern there. And that came because I'm a Nepo baby. Like, you don't keep your job for being a Nepo baby, but you can get a job. Yeah. Right. I got an internship because my dad knew the producer. I might have gotten it anyway. I applied like normal, but he put in a good word. But they don't keep you if you're not. Yeah. At least I don't have that.
The door's open, but you got to keep it open. You got to
keep it, right? So I was an intern. And then when I went back to college on the first job, but I'll tell you where that spark happened. My dad had come, my dad was here, my mom was in New York, and I was with my mom, and my dad would come to New York. We'd come visit after the divorce. My dad came back east, and it happened to coincide with the start of a TV show, which he knew the producer on, and he brought my sister and I, and there we are in the front room. It was the first David Letterman morning show. He had a morning show.
No, I've seen clips of that.
Month or 2 or 3. And we were there, and so think about David Letterman as a morning show thing. And it was the weirdest, I can curse, right? Weirdest I've seen. But it really, if you looked at me in the audience, I think a light bulb, some spark happened. I go, I don't know what this is, but I want in. It was really something I had never, I loved it. It was so weird and funny. It was familiar because it was funny. And I didn't know David Letterman. He wasn't an improv comic. I didn't know him. Yeah. Anyway, that was the spark. And that was when I was, 13 or 12. I was in pigtails with a Spider-Man t-shirt on. I was pretty young. And then years later, I was an intern. And then I worked there. I was a receptionist for 2 years in the talent department, and I worked there for 11 years. And and my niche was stand-up comics, and it was the best job I've ever had in my life. And I've had great jobs.
You became the booker.
I was the stand-up booker, which was only a small part of the job because I had to, comics they didn't have on all the time. So I had to be, not had to, but I was part of the celebrity talent department. So we also booked celebrities, which was, I mean, in the sense, some celebrities were great who actually were funny or cared about being on the show, like Dave's friends, but the stand-ups were the piece that I loved, and it was my niche, and it's the thing that Dave cared about so much. Yeah. Right? He didn't care about talking about the third lead in a Miramax movie, which by the way, why they were on the show, because Harvey wasn't, because Creepo pushed him. Anyway, but he cared about the stand-ups, and I took it very seriously and loved that job, and would have stayed with that job if they didn't make me stay doing celebrities. No.
Well, yeah, because you're like the perfect person for that, because you've seen like so much comedy, like since you were a kid, it'd be like you can see past everything and stuff.
I think that's right. I think I could see past everything. I have a great compassion for comics, the underbelly, because I've seen the vulnerability of comics bombing. I've seen them high. I've seen them. I don't mean high on drugs, but high from a break.
You've probably seen that too.
And that too, right? High, low, right? Big break, something that changes the net. I mean, the whole thing. So it took me a while to get to that position at Letterman, because I was a receptionist first. So but when I got there, it felt so right. And it's still, because I feel like, this is a little, probably grandiose, but like I feel like I'm a comic whisperer a little bit, because I know how to talk to comics, because I do think and not every comic's the same, so I don't mean the grand generalization, but there is I know how to talk to them. They are part of like my cellular team.
Yeah, and there are like a lot of common threads with comedians and stuff. Like I was looking on like
depression,
a lot of anxiety, drug use,
insecurity,
loneliness,
a lot of
fear.
A lot of them don't know their dad. And I remember I was looking at a book. They had like father issues, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, I picked the right job. I don't know who my dad is. This is perfect.
Well, you look at it because we get up on stage, we want people to tell us how they love us. And,
yes, we want that
all the adoration and stuff. But it's just like any profession. Probably there's a lot of mixes from people from different walks of life. And there was a documentary on it. Are comedians more depressed than
other people?
Than other people? What do you think?
Yeah. Maybe there might be I don't know, more depressed, but perhaps there's a mental illness piece, or mental
seeking approval
or something. It could be that common thread, but I also think there are different types of comics, and there are some that are very much that monologists that write jokes that have nothing to do with what's going on inside. And you could put anybody there maybe and have them read the jokes.
Topical.
They're good
political
jokes. They're crafted jokes, but they're not personal or revealing. And I like those kind of comics, but I don't know if they particularly have mental illness or depression. That type. They might. They still might want the approval, but I do think it seems as comedy has become a bit more mainstream, and you guys can speak to this better than I can. It feels like there are people that want to be comedians, but don't have that drive, that sort of I need the approval drive. But again, I don't know those comics maybe to speak to that 100%.
No, it's true. I know for me personally that was the thing. It's like it's gotten better, but definitely when I started out, I had this insane drive of like, oh my God, I just want to get a laugh. I want them to like me. I want them to like me. And that just it kept me up at night. You know what I'm saying? Like I would just stay up late and just keep practicing. I remember I had a microphone in my garage and I would just keep practicing and stuff. I was like 16, but I had that insane, like I wanted approval so bad. And we talk about like just the highs and lows of it too, because like 1 minute, you're up there, you're killing, you feel like, oh, I'm people say, oh, you're awesome. And you get all this. And then that goes away, then you go back to a hotel room and you're just kind of sitting there. And then you're just like, well, I want the party to keep going, So you might go out, do a little of that, do a little of that.
Yeah.
And then, you'll have a set that's like low. And then it's like, oh, I suck. I'm the worst comic in the world. Why'd I even get into this,
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of like that, I don't think the plumber who fixed my drain is like, afterwards, he's like, oh, I killed that drain. That was awesome. I'm the best plumber in the world. Yeah,
huge applause from all that. Walking out the door.
Yeah, like, oh, you're awesome, dude.
You clean the pipes, dude.
And then he goes on one and he can't unclog. He's like, I'm the worst plumber ever. I shouldn't even done this. I suck. Everyone hates me.
It's so true, man.
It's a weird job.
It is such a weird job, yeah.
The highs and the lows are so dramatic. It's like, if I go away, I do 5 shows on a weekend. I come back, I am prepared. I know that on Monday or Tuesday I'm gonna crash. And Daryl Hammond and I talk about it all the time. there's a crash, and Jay Moore talks about it. There's a crash usually on a Monday or Tuesday where I'm really depressed, and where it feels like I just scored the game-winning touchdown in the
and then you're done, right?
Yeah, in the Super Bowl, and then the next weekend it's like my life's over. I'm never going to amount to anything, and it's like I think that's why it's really important to have different tools to combat that. Those downs.
The awareness. That's amazing that that pattern has presented itself. So you kind of go, oh, I know I'm going to feel a little bit down, because I think part of it is when we feel bad, we're not prepared for it. We go into our sort of survival mode to fix it, whatever that is. But sometimes when you're aware of it, then you can approach it with mindfulness, or, more sort of, kind of like, oh yeah, I know this is going to happen, and it will pass again. Right. It will let,
Yeah.
One of the things I do is, it's how we met.
Yeah.
Transcendental meditation, which we've talked about. I'm a daily practitioner of TM meditation, but you and I were at an event with Russell Brand.
That's right.
And we sat next to each other, and we
just coincidentally,
and we just started talking, and we just totally bonded.
We did. I was like, "You're a comic? Well, I'm in comedy, and we're doing TM together." And you're in a room with a bunch of TM people. It's like it might be like a sober thing where you're like, everybody's like, "Hi, how are you?" Looking you right in the eyes, and like really everybody's pretty happy and pretty content. I don't know if that's like being so, but my son, who's now sober, but he went to a New Year's Eve sober party, and he brought a couple of his normie friends from high school, and they were like, that was the best party because everybody was so nice, and everybody looked me in the eye, and they're used to going to these like high school parties that are just filled with drama and but their experience was like, well, that was really fun. I wish we stayed longer at that party.
No, I love that. I love it's like hard for me to be around now whenever I'm at a place and someone gets like too drunk, and I'm like, I get anxiety for some reason, because I think in my mind I start thinking back like, oh my God, that was me. I was that dude who was just annoying and just loud, just so loud, just like talking to people like, we'll be right here, and then I'd be like, yeah, Greg, this is crazy, we're doing it, and then your emotions flip so fast. 1 minute you're all happy, the next minute you're sad, and the next minute you're angry. It all just goes back and forth. So I do like parties that are like more stable.
Yeah, I think that's what they were, experiencing a little bit. It wasn't probably that mad dash of like, who has the blow, who has the this, which is a very strange energy to be around, as you guys have probably known. Like everybody wants that next whatever. Let me ask you guys a question. Who you have done your own work on yourself personally, and that's how we met at TM. And Dustin, we know each other from the Improv. Do you think there's a perception? I'll ask for the perception for comics, and then I'll ask for you guys personally. Do you think that comics think if they get fixed, they're not going to be funny? And did you think that before you got help or became sober or do your TM or, your tools? Do you think? Because I think it's a fallacy, but I'm not a comic.
Because Greg, you got sober and then started doing stand-up, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't drink. I started when I was 16. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs or anything. I moved to New York and I got some success and I still wasn't drinking. But when I turned like 22, I drank a little bit, but it was okay. It wasn't like the insane drinking, And then things would happen that I noticed, like how if I drank, my nerves would go away. I would be calm. And I was like, my God, I love this feeling. Like I would have a show. Remember, I would have to headline and you got to do 45 minutes and you're like, you only have like 35 minutes. So you're like, oh shit, what do I do? How do I fill this time? But I noticed when I drank, I would come up with that other 10 minutes, And so I would start using it as like a crutch. And it was just I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use this just to calm down. That's all, make the nerves go away. But then it's a progressive thing where it starts getting worse and worse. And then you need it for everything. Like it gets to the point where it's like, oh, now I have to have this just to like wake up and deal with life. I got to like start drinking and stuff. So whenever I went to rehab and I was feeling all my feelings again, it was like, oh, this is fear. This is sadness. And I don't have anything to make this go away. This is just here now. And I was working a 12-step program in there, and that helped tremendously. But I remember when I first got out, I had this gig that I had taken before rehab. I was in San Diego, and I had to headline. And I remember thinking like, I can't do this. I don't think I'm funny. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do stand-up again. I don't think this is just in the cards for me because I used alcohol for so long that I don't think I'm funny without it. So I went up and I did the set and I felt very tight, but I made it through it. And then each time I got up after that, it got a little bit easier and a little bit easier. But it was like having to relearn everything again. Like it was having to relearn like just how to talk to people, like just have a conversation. Because I start realizing I'm like, oh, I'm this like nervous, like kind of antisocial guy. But I was out there being so social and it was just because of alcohol. So I remember I would read books. I read that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you know? I remember I would look at YouTube videos, how to do stand-up comedy. I seriously, and I'd been doing it for a long time, but I was just like.
You mean when you got so you were.
Yeah, when I got sober.
Oh, you were like.
I was having to relearn everything again because I had to just remember like, oh, this is how you do it. You know, just like these little stupid things. But now it's great. You know, now it's like, I feel like I'm back. Not even back to, but better than I was before, you know? And I can see it. Like sometimes I have these USBs at my house of just like sets, and I plugged one in the other day and it was hard to watch because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so drunk right there. And I remember at the time I think that I'm doing great, but it's not, you know, like alcohol, it has this way of like lying to you. You know, where it's like you think you're killing, but your
perception's off.
Your perception is off.
People are thinking you're sloppy and
exactly.
terrible, but your mind is telling you you're killing it.
And I remember in my mind thinking, "Oh yeah, I destroyed that night." And then you look back at the tape, you're like, "Oh my God, this is insane."
And the club's getting complaints and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and it's just, oh my God, it's so much better now. It's like a nightmare is over.
Well, you know I think that answers the question that perhaps you might have thought the same thing. I'm fixed, I'm sober, I'm not going to be funny.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you have to kind of live through that kind of question and then go, oh no, because that idea that you're going to take a drink and write those 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You're going to write those 10 minutes when you don't have the drink now. And they're probably a better 10 minutes. But it was fear. You did it because you were fearful that you wouldn't come up with those 10 minutes. Right. And I don't know. So
and then you start using it for every fear.
Yeah, right.
Every feeling that you want to go away, you got a solution.
Yeah, what is that, man? What are feelings? We gotta, they're not going to eat us up. I think I was so afraid of feelings, like to not run away from them, and recently learned even like a shift in language, like rather than say I am sad, I am anxious. I feel sad, I feel anxious versus I am not my sadness. I am not my anxiety. I feel them. Yeah. Right. But it doesn't mean like I am them. Yeah. And that helps me kind of not turn my back as much to them and say, all right, let's see what you have. Because I think the more we run, the worse they get. Right.
I heard that. Yeah. Someone in rehab told me that too. Because I remember they were saying like in Gaelic, that like Irish language, they were saying how you don't say I'm sad, I'm nervous. It's like sadness is upon me, so it's not like connected to you. But now it's like I've got other tools now that I wish I would have had before, but things were just like, just like meditation, calling someone, going for a walk, writing it out, so I don't have to depend on the substances.
You've
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
One of the things too I've noticed is I've always liked to be in the center of the spotlight, and I wasn't doing meth. I mean, I wasn't using drugs and alcohol as a comedian. I started doing it when I was sober, but I was a theater actor. I was in the doing that, and I always felt that the adoration and success would make me happy, and people would love me, and and I loved being the center of the spotlight. But recently, I got some good career news, and which was phenomenal. But that night I woke up at 4:00 in the morning in a total panic that it's going to fail. It's not going to work out. And, and I had a realization. It's like those outside things don't fix what's wrong with me internally, and I have to be spiritually fit, like you were saying, prayer, meditation, service work, all these things make me okay, to not be succumb to those emotions that you were talking about, and not, be a slave to them.
And the approval and the love that we have to give ourselves before before, like, if we're taking them in from other people, it's like like we need it, right? We need that. And if we're only getting it from strangers on the stage or you, we need to fill it up for ourselves first. And then it becomes extra. Then it gets to be bounced off of us and still be, upon us, or whatever. Oh, approval upon me versus they approve me. They love me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's take a minute to support our advertisers. If you hear the products being advertised, oh wait.
Oh yeah, we don't have any.
Oh man.
But if you'd like to be a sponsor, go to our website, goodthingspod.com, drop us an email, and we'd love to advertise what you're making.
If you hear the advertisements, support who advertises us. That's the way we stay afloat. Comedians go through a lot of ups and downs. It's a very difficult industry to work in. And there's so many ups and downs and sacrifices that they made, which brings me to the hat that you're wearing.
I love that.
Comedy Gives Back.
I should have brought them for you guys. You probably have one, Greg.
I do.
Okay.
I do. And
the SNL show.
The SNL, which we'll talk about in a second. But you started, you've had a very illustrious and successful career. Developing comedians and breaking careers. And then now you started Comedy Gives Back. What is Comedy Gives Back?
I did, Greg. Thanks. So Comedy Gives Back is a 501c3, a nonprofit that supports comedians in need. So we are the safety net to the comedy community. Much like a Music Cares helps musicians and Actors Fund helps actors, Comedy Gives Back helps comedians and the comedy community through financial crisis relief, mental health therapy, and chemical dependency treatment and community support, right? We are a relatively new-ish organization focusing on comedians and supporting them. And we're learning what the community needs, and we're trying to be responsive and flexible, but financial, mental health, and chemical dependency are three sort of pillars, and community,
which are very common themes for people in comedians,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, every industry every community can take care of their own, right? Like this is, my partners and I are all from the comedy space, comedy producers, managers. So we love the community that we're in and that we are blessed to be in and privileged. I mean, you want to know like what it felt like growing up. Like, I feel like the luckiest person that I get to be in a room with comedians, be in that late night room with comedians, be in the cantors without being a comedian. And not because I I have so much admiration for comedy. It's not, I just would be too scared to do it. Yeah. But, like so much admiration. So, helping the comedians was such a natural extension for my partners and I. And then pandemic hit and we became a pandemic relief organization because that leveled the playing field for comedy because nobody could perform. Nobody was making any money.
Yeah. And so, the problem with comedians is they weren't making enough money before the pandemic, so they didn't qualify to get unemployment and benefits. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden they have no job, no financial support, no access to money, and they can't pay their rent and so forth. Your organization actually helped financially some people that I know.
We did. I mean, we helped over 1,000 people in pandemic, which was, if we didn't have the pandemic, and I wish we didn't, but we helped maybe 40 comedians a year outside of pandemic, right? So, hey, I'm a comic. I need mental health. I'm depressed. We recently had somebody who couldn't get off their out of bed, and we got them to a psychiatrist, and they're feeling so much better and back. All of that. Like, hey, I'm a comic on the road, but we get like 40 maybe in a year. Where we in the first year of pandemic gave over 1,000. We helped over 1,000 comedians. So the quantity with less money, like with a smaller grant for pandemic, but we were able to touch appropriately a lot more comedians. And now we're back to our initial vision, which is more like a Music Cares. Like, hey, I'm a comic. I've fallen on hard times. My partner's sick, or my car broke down and I can't go on my road tour. And then we pay the mechanic, get them. Our whole job is to get comedians back to do what they do best, which is make people laugh. Because truthfully, comedy is the heart and soul of this world. We need to laugh together. It heals. It brings us together. It's community building. It's endorphins. It's all of it. Like, we want to raise the vibration of the planet through comedy. And I'm not a comedian, so the way we could do it is lift and rise comedians up to get back to do what they do best.
Yeah. And me personally, comedy gives back. I'm like so grateful for it. It pretty much saved my life because towards the end of my drinking and using, it got so dark. And so I was like a daily drinker, almost daily blackout drinker. And I wanted to quit. I was at that point where I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to have the physical separation. So Comedy Gives Back got me into rehab, which was the best thing. It was like the best thing I've ever done in my life. I wish I would have done it sooner. It changed the trajectory of my life completely. And it made my life better and everyone's life around me better. It's an amazing thing. And I'm just so glad there's like a service out there that does that. You guys like paid for my rehab, and I'm forever grateful for
You're
that.
a good case study, Dustin, and I thank you for saying that because I know it's not easy. And the thing is, we help a lot of comedians with stuff they don't want to talk about, right? Like, there's, hey, I need help. Nobody wants to go, guess what? I need help. And I went, you know.
No, yeah,
right?
totally.
Like, so
and like,
I really appreciate you being so forthcoming with it because you are a perfect case study and story of what Comedy Gives Back wants to do. And our purpose and sole reason is to get, and I saw your Tonight Show. I think it was so
crazy.
good. And just to have like that as the milestone as we get to talk today on that is so beautiful. And we're so happy that and you have good friends around you too, because you didn't come to us. Somebody else came to us and we were able to put it together and help you and find the right place and pay for it. And we're thrilled that we could help. And please, if you're a comic or in the community and you need help, please, please, please reach out.
Yeah. And that's why I do talk about it. I've been like talking about it on stage because it's like, there are people out there in the same boat that like don't know, and there is help out there. It can be done. And since I got sober, my life is just, it's been amazing. There's ups and downs, of course, but no down like it was before.
Manageable, maybe, right? More manageable.
Yeah. Everything has a solution now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and feelings come and they're good and bad, but it's like I can deal with them now. And
everything has a solution, I think, is exactly the mentality that's like resilience, right? Like I had an eating disorder as a teenager. And my mother was very pro therapy, thank God. One of my best friends wrote me a letter saying, I saw how upset you were that you ate a cookie and you shouldn't let food control your life. And I just burst into tears because I was anorexic. I wasn't eating, but I wasn't talking about it with anybody. You know, secretive, right? When we have our stuff, we keep it secret or think you are. But I was like 95 pounds and you know,
that's weird how people just know.
But she saw it and she was so wise. This is like my Jaxie Israel. I'll shout her out. She knows. You know, we were, I don't know, 15, 14, and she made this letter and I showed it to my mom and my mom's like, I'm on it. And she got me into therapy. And besides resolving my eating disorder, which was mostly about control a little bit, I think with my parents' divorce and you can control your food and that's all, you know, I went to therapy and things got better. And from now on, besides the tools I got in therapy, I think my mindset is there's always a solution. There's always I can get help. Like that therapist was good enough. My mom found the right person that I was like, I was cured. Or, you know, I still go to therapy, trust me. I'm not cured, but I believe there's always a solution. And that's a mindset thing. That is a mindset, I think, that you will then go on because you're not going to be stumbling from something. And if you stumble, you go, I know how to I can figure this out. I might not know exactly, but I'll figure it out. I know there's ways to get me better when I'm feeling bad, you know, like I have my tools. I have like, I know there's therapy out there if I'm not in it, which I'm usually in it most of my life.
Yeah. And it does take like a little action, like reaching out. Sure. I remember I would just lay in bed and just be like, oh God, help me not be a drunk anymore. But it's like, you actually have to take steps.
That's true too,
One of the obstacles I think too, because I mean, I can say probably pretty honestly that suicide is prevalent in the comedy community. We see a lot of comedians commit suicide. And the hard part, and, you know, I deal with some depression. I'm not suicidal, but, you know, periodic depression. The hard part is getting to the point where you're willing to ask for help.
That is so
you know, because I'll be stuck and I'm like, I don't want to burden my problems on somebody else. And then I revel them and then I get more depressed and it gets worse.
Yeah.
You know, so it's Dustin and I have been really good. You know, first of all, I want to thank Comedy Gives Back because you gave me one of my best friends. We wouldn't.
Yeah, it is like this guy. Greg's helped me so much. Like,
and he's the best.
We wouldn't be sitting here today without Comedy Gives Back. The whole reason we've had this show is because of you.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's why we
and everything in my life, pretty much.
Yeah.
But you know, you get to a point where you're so depressed, and you don't want to burden people with your problems. So it's good to know that Comedy Gives Back is there for people. And you know what? Have enough courage to reach out, you know. And
you don't have to know the answer. You don't have to know the question.
Yeah.
You just email help@comedygivesback.com.
Okay.
And somebody will get back to you. And if we don't have the resource, we'll find the resource.
Yeah.
And everything is anonymous unless you don't want it to be like Dustin here and he speaks to it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we keep it in great confidence. But yeah, I think it is the hardest thing is to ask for help for anybody.
Yeah.
Like especially stand-ups. Hi, I'm alone on stage doing this by myself. I got this, right? In our log line or our sort of tagline is, you know, the job of the comedian is to be alone on stage, but feeling alone off stage, unacceptable.
Yeah.
That is what we're trying to change because especially stand-ups. And I would say if we talk about mental health of comics or is depression more prevalent, I don't know 100%, but what I do know is it's a solitary job and there's a reason you guys are stand-ups and you're doing it on your own. Mm-hmm. And I think that mentality is much harder to ask for help with that.
Yeah, it is. It's so it's just good for anybody listening to know that help is available and Comedy Gives Back for comedians, but there's also suicide hotlines. There's therapists 988 yeah. And
can I speak what services we have?
Yeah.
So apart from what we've been talking about here, like chemical dependency treatment, that might be your thing, we do offer comedians a free month of BetterHelp through Comedy Gives Back. So if that is a way to start, if you have a therapist that you already are in and can't afford treatment, come and apply. We will help you pay for it. If you're with doctors and your insurance is ending and you're going to lose access to your therapist or psychiatrist and you're going to lose it and you need your help with paying your premium, we can help you with that. Chemical dependency. We have a monthly meditation at the Comedy Store, the third Wednesday of every month.
Phenomenal.
Which is great and led by Tim Duffy. And Greg and I and Dustin went the last time.
Yeah.
And it's pretty.
It's amazing.
It's not even pretty. It is amazing. It's amazing and life-changing. Yeah. And so there's that. There's a recovery meeting at the Improv on Wednesdays at noon, which wasn't out of us, but ours was Tuesday. It used to be. I'm trying to think what else we have. We have HealthNet. We have this new smart-based app for comedians, and we are paying for 100 comedians for the year. And it is not as a replacement of insurance, but it is a low-cost alternative to healthcare that meets comedians where they are, whether on the road or at home. So if you're a comic and you have a sore throat and you have the HealthNet portal, the app, you can get on the phone or telehealth with a doctor and get a prescription to the CVS in Cincinnati or wherever you are on the road within an hour or two. And you could have access to, there's also mental health, there's self-led addiction through that app. There's virtual pet care if you travel with your dog or pet. So we have a lot of resources, and because comics feel that somebody else needs it more, they're often unused and unutilized. So please don't be shy. Come use our tools.
You know what's so amazing about you, and I know Dustin and I have experienced this, as you've had so much tremendous success in the comedy industry, but now you've evolved to a place where you're giving back and you're trying to make the world a better place.
Well, we get to an age and we want to I mean, it's always been in me, but I think it is I think I'm much more even committed to it since my parents' death, because I feel like they took care of comics and it was a business. Look, the Improv put me through college, a private university. It wasn't like my mom was closer to a socialist than my dad. My dad was a heavy duty capitalist, but all good. It's not that it wasn't a business, but they cared about comics. That's what I know. It wasn't a business first. It was comics first. And my mom would have given her last penny, and she did, to comics. Here, I'll take the bus home. You take a cab home. So it's just, I get to continue my parents' legacy, which, now that they're not here, is even more important.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
We love you so much.
Yeah,
we
it's
started
amazing.
this podcast, and our vision was to make the world a better place through positivity and positive messages.
Wow.
And I couldn't imagine a guest that more fits what we're trying to do.
Totally.
And you saved Dustin's life.
Oh well, I'm glad I was part of that, and because like I said, you guys need to do what you do and make people laugh, and I think comics being less cynical as you are in this good things are happening is really important too, because I think you can be funny and not cynical, right? I think we can be sincere about good things in life and be cynical on stage or whatever your persona is on stage, right? Like just like you can be fixed and funny, you can be good, and like we gotta acknowledge the good around us, especially these days, because I don't know about you, my life has been a pretty big shit show the last couple of years. I mean,
you lost both your parents. It's tough.
I mean, my son's stuff, all you good now, but like it's been hard. It's like human whack-a-mole, life whack-a-mole. You come up and then go down again.
Yeah.
So I think it's that's the whole idea of gratitude and thinking about the good things and highlighting them. So it's really important. And even on my way over, I got to think about, even though I didn't talk about like what was good. It's just good to keep frame your thinking that way, like first or goods or whatever it is. So I appreciate you guys are here doing this.
You're the best. Zoe, should we transition into some news stories?
Yes, we like to just talk about some good things, because on the news it's always like depressing and shit. So there's like
if
a
it
few.
It leads. Let's make a new phrase. If it makes you smile, it's worthwhile.
That's going on a t-shirt.
All right, I got one here. A guy was eating at the Long John Silver's.
What year are we?
I used to work at Long John Silver's.
Are there still some in the country?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
They're still out.
When you're on
They're
the road,
still
you
out
probably
there
see the good.
clogging arteries. They're doing their thing.
And he took his dentures out to eat.
Yeah.
And then he forgot them at the restaurant. He went home and he called back to the restaurant and said he talked to the manager and he said he left his dentures. And she said, "What do they look like?" And he said, "They're wrapped in a napkin." So she went into the garbage. What? And she rummaged through the garbage and found this poor gentleman's dentures and returned them. And as a result, she won $1,000 kindness prize.
What?
Yeah.
That
Did
is
he
so
give it to
cool.
who gave her the money?
I don't know. It just says then gets $1,000 kindness prize.
Maybe Long John Silver's. That'd be cool. of it, man.
He should be nominated for the Pulitzer for that one.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to do that.
Can I just say that when I was like, I don't know how old, 13, I had a retainer. And I lost it once, and then I threw it out on a fast food tray, when I was out with my friend.
Yeah.
My mother's like, not again. And I had to go back to that fast food restaurant and do what that woman did, and go through the garbage to find my retainer. But it's one of those lessons.
Oh my God.
Like sometimes, I did find it, I did find it, and I put it back. I mean, she cleaned it, but I put it back in my
I have a theory too that everyone at some point in their life has dug through trash.
Oh,
you have to. You're gonna
100%.
accidentally throw some away. You're gonna check that.
Yeah.
You're gonna dig through some trash in life.
Absolutely.
I like how they probably had to call their husband, "Honey, I'm gonna be home late. Why? I'm working the grill." That's silly.
That's awesome. That's funny.
Yeah,
well,
man.
I gotta say, Zoe, you're the
yeah,
best.
Zoe,
my
thank
God,
you
you guys
so
are the
much
best.
for coming.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Thanks for having
You do
me.
great
Yeah.
things. You help so many comics, and I'm just forever grateful.
And and I forget to mention, you and I partnered on two. I produced the SNL alum show at the Improv, and we partnered on those shows, which was just such an honor to.
Greg, you're the best. You brought a lot of attention and focus to us, to that audience.
It's amazing, and
just even with our banner there and just the mention. I mean,
it's incredible just to be able to give back, and again, you got one of my best friends in the world sober, and we wouldn't be here without you.
Well, I just think people also should be aware that this is out there, and I don't mean for the comics and the services, but I mean for people too, to understand. If you like to laugh and you go to comedy and you watch Netflix, comics live a hard life. You can give and support. And by the way, donate at comedyisback.com. Donate or 707 laugh to 7077070. Anyway, but it's important for people to know that comics can hit on hard times, that we just They're not just clowns all the time. They need help and, services. And thank you for having me. This was an honor. I really appreciate it.
You're the best, Zoe. We love you.
We love you. Thanks so much.
Well, Greg, that was fun.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure and follow Comedy Gives Back. And also, Good Things Are Happening.
Just what a fantastic
show. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Zoe.
Thank you for saving Dustin's life.
I'm gonna go home with a big ego now.
And then tomorrow I'm like, Zoe, I need to borrow some money. I relet. No, I'm just kidding. That's not happening. That's not happening.
Take that from law.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Really
that was awesome. I'm Dustin Ibarra.
I'm Greg Baldwin.
Find us on social media and on the web at goodthingspod.com.
You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube at Good Things Are Happening Podcast.
We're on Patreon. Sign up because we're going to have some cool stuff on there.
Like really, really, really cool stuff.
So dope we can't even talk about it. Yeah. And remember, when life gets you down, good things are happening.
Good things are happening. Help somebody.